Ladies and gentlemen, Deborah Darr auditioning for life.
I was high above the city. I was standing on the ledge. The view from there was pretty, and I stepped off the edge. And I was falling through the sky. I was falling through the sky. It was my calling. Don't you cry, don't you cry. I was falling through the sky to the street that I'm from. Oh, Broadway, here I come. The pressure, it increases the closer that one gets. I almost went to pieces, but I wasn't quite there yet. I was braving crazy weather, drowning out my cries, but I held myself together. I was focused on the prize, and I was falling, baby, through the sky, through the sky. I was falling through the sky. It was my calling. Don't you cry, don't you cry. I was falling. Would I remain the same, or would I change a little bit? Would I feel broken or totally complete? Would I retain my name when I was in the biggest hit? Or would I blend in with the rest of the street? Well, even though I feared it, I was playing all my cards. Baby, you were gonna hear it when I sent them my regards. I refused to go numb. Oh, Broadway, here I come. Broadway, Broadway. Dancing and singing, singing and dancing, that is all I ever wanted to do in my life. So in 1958, I was 10 years old. You can do the math. My parents took me to New York City to see my very first Broadway show. The razzle-dazzle, the excitement, the lights. I was hooked. From then on, I knew that's what I wanted to do, was to get onto one of those stages. So I went to Ohio State University, and I majored in dance. And I was put a year ahead in the dance department, so after 3 years, I was ready to get out of there. So I went to my parents, and I begged them, would they please let me leave college to move to New York City? My father, actually, reluctantly, I mean very reluctantly, he actually said that I could, but I had to have a plan. I have a dream, a wonderful dream, Papa. It's gonna come true. I know that it's true, Papa. Some people can get a thrill knitting sweaters and sitting still. That's okay for some people who don't know they're alive. Some people can thrive and bloom, living life in their living room. That's perfect for some people of 105, but I at least got to try. When I think of all the sights that I've got to see yet, all the places I've got to play, all the things that I've got to be yet, come on, Papa, what do you say? Some people can be content playing bingo and paying rent. That's peachy for some people, for some humdrum people to be. But some people ain't me. So, my plan was that I wanted to go to this very prestigious acting school in New York City called the Neighborhood Playhouse. It was run by a man named Sandy Meisner, and Joanne Woodward and Paul Newman were graduates of that school, so I thought it was probably a pretty good place to go to. So I had my interview with Mr. Meisner, and I was accepted. New York, New York, it's a hell of a town. The Bronx is up and the Battery's down, where people ride in a hole in the ground. New York, New York, it's a hell of a town. So I moved to New York and I got myself an apartment on the Upper West Side, a little studio for $175 a month. And I attended the Neighborhood Playhouse. It was 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. I lasted 3 months. I hated it. I found out I really didn't want to learn about character development or about the Stanislavski method, no less the Meisner method, or what it felt like to be a piece of bacon frying in a pan. I just wanted to be on stage. I'm just a Broadway baby, learning how to sing and dance, waiting for that one big chance to be in a show. Gee, I'd like to be on some marquee. Oh, twinkling lights, a spark to light the dark. From Battery Park to Washington Heights, someday maybe all my dreams will be repaid. Heck, I'd even play the maid to be in a show. Actually, the biggest role I ever played on Broadway was the maid. But that story comes later. So, my poor parents, I'd left the school that they said I could go to. We had made a deal that if I moved to New York City, they would only support me if I were getting an education in anything. So they said, being the very responsible parents that they were, get a job. So I did. At the Gaslight Club. Do you remember the Playboy Club back in the 60s? Well, this was kind of like that, only we didn't wear those silly cotton bunny tails and those little bunny ears. We wore very tasteful bustiers. And I think my earring just fell off. Let me see. Oh, sparkle, sparkle. Will you wait till I get this back on? Anyway. Thank you, Florence. So we didn't wear these bunny ears. We wore very tasteful bustiers, and tiaras. My favorite part of this job was that I got to sit on the piano and sing. So. Nick's playing my song. Thank you, Nick. When a custom-tailored vet asks me out for something wet, when the vet begins to pet, I cry hooray. But I'm always true to you, darling, in my fashion. Yes, I'm always true to you, darling, in my way. There was this old man who would come and sit in the very back of the Gaslight every night. He was very wealthy. And one night he gave me this humongous tip. And he asked me to sing his song. And I mean literally, his song. He owned the copyright. You're nobody till somebody loves you. You're nobody till somebody cares. You may be king and you possess the world and its gold, but gold won't bring you happiness when you're growing old. There was this really cute guy who would come in a few nights a week. He was closer to my age, about 21. And we started to flirt a little bit. And one night, I got up the courage to ask him what he did for a living. I'm in garbage management. And then he opened his coat. And there was the first real live gun I have ever seen. I have chills up my spine and some thrills I can't define. Little wow, tell me now, how long has this been going on? I nearly vanished through the floor. What a dunce I was before. Listen, sweet, I repeat, how long has this been going on? And then there was Bobby the bartender. We love Bobby. He would slip me these fabulous drinks every night. They were called a pink squirrel. They were so pink. They were so good. And I drank so many of them. A foggy day in London town had me blue and had me down. I viewed the morning with alarm. The British Museum had lost its charm. How long, I wondered, could this thing last? But the age of miracles hadn't passed. Suddenly, I saw you there, and in foggy London town, the sun was shining everywhere. So, then came the night when the owner of the Gaslight came to me and said that I should go downstairs and get dressed because I was going out with he and his buddies for a night on the town. So I went downstairs, pink squirrel in hand. I got dressed, looked at myself in the mirror, and ran! Wave your little hand and whisper, so long, dearie, you ain't gonna see me anymore. And if you discover that your life is dreary, don't you come a-knocking at my door, for I'll be all dolled up and singing a song that says, you dog, I told you so. So wave your little hand and whisper, so long, dearie, dearie, you ain't gonna see me anymore. And then there was the agent who said if I didn't do what he asked me to do to him, I'd never make it in showbiz. Oh, wave your little hand and whisper, so long, dearie, you ain't gonna see me anymore. And then there was the photographer who said that maybe if he tied my hands behind my back to a chair, he might get a more dramatic headshot. Wave your little hand and whisper, so long, dearie, you ain't gonna see me anymore. And let us not forget the Italian director who cast me as his high priestess in his horror film, then to tell me the only films he had ever directed were porno. Don't come a-knockin', I'll be all dolled up and singing a song that says, you dog, I told you so. So, buddy, when you find your life a sad old story and you find your dolly shuffle off to glory, or I should have said so long ago. And you can keep your tiara. Glad I got out of there. So, let's see. So far in my life, I'd left college. I had quit the acting school. I ran away from my first job in New York. Maybe it was time that I started doing what I came to New York to do. So I started auditioning. My first audition was for the very first, or the original, Jesus Christ Superstar. And I still remember that audition was one of the most fabulous experiences in my audition life because they asked the dancers to go barefoot and improvise to an African drummer. That is my idea of heaven. So, right, Myrna? And a few other people here. So, I actually got cast as one of the dancers. Woo-hoo! However, about 2 weeks later, the producer came to the director to say he was unhappy with the way he was taking the show, so he fired the director and the entire cast. That's showbiz. So then, I auditioned for the replacement of Donna McKechnie in Promises, Promises. So, I show up to the Schubert Theater. There are over 100 dancers, and we do our little choreography for the choreographer, and they weed everybody out. And then the second day of auditions, and the director weeds everybody out. And then the third day, there are 3 of us. Michael Bennett, the director from Chorus Line, he looks me straight in the eye and he says, "You're too tall." I was this tall 3 days ago. I don't understand. Anyway, so then I auditioned for Zorba the Greek, the Broadway show. Well, the bus and truck of the Broadway show. But I actually not only got one role, but I got three. I was a dancer in the chorus. I was the role of the belly dancer. And please don't ask me where I learned to belly dance, unless Kareem Tonzi is in the audience. Hello. And I was cast as the understudy to one of the leads. So, we're out on the road. Marguerite Ann Corey, the woman who is my, the woman that I understudied. I need a little bit more of this throat coat. Drink throat coat, it's very good for you. So Marguerite Ann Corey, she had this really, really nasty habit of showing up 5 minutes before curtain. Being an understudy is like, it's like being a racehorse at the starting gate. And the gate never opens. But one night, it did. Life is what you do while you're waiting to die. Life is how the time goes by. This was a 9-month bus and truck. We zigzagged across the United States and Canada. You name the town, we played it. Life is where you wait while you're waiting to leave. Life is where you grin and grieve. We played grand hotels, we played tiny little theaters. One theater you had to go out back of the theater and around through the parking lot in order to make an entrance on the other side of stage. Having if you're lucky, wanting if you're not, looking for the ruby underneath the rot, hungry for the pilaf in someone else's pot, but that's the only choice you've got. There was one very small southern town where our stage manager had to go rescue the entire male cast from jail. They were arrested for having beards. Life is where you stand just before you are flat. Life is only that, Mr. Life is simply that, Mr. That and nothing more than that. We traveled 50 lunatic theater people on a Greyhound bus, almost all one-night stands, a different hotel every night. I bought myself a macrame wall hanging and an Indian bedspread in order to make my hotel room feel more like home. Jack Daniels became my favorite companion. Life is what you feel till you can't feel at all. Life is where you fly and fall. We ended the tour in Providence, Rhode Island. For some strange reason, I decided that I needed to look up the definition of Providence in the dictionary. It means God's will. Running through the shelter, naked in the snow, learning that there are teardrops everywhere you go, knowing it's the mud that makes the roses grow, but that's the only choice you know. A bus and truck, my dear friends, is the theater's version of trial by fire. By the time we got back to New York, I was prescribed tranquilizers. Life is what you do while you're waiting to die. Life is how the time goes. So, time goes by and by and by. I got to do a few more Broadway shows. I did The Rothschilds with Hal Linden. Remember that one? And I remember I would pray every night that I would be able to make that turn and land on my partner's shoulder in the opening number. I think I made it about 7 times out of 8 a week, but I did it. That show lasted, I think, about 4 months. Then I did The Selling of the President. It was really a fun show and a wonderful cast. And I bet you have never heard of it. We closed a week before we were supposed to open on Broadway. Oh, don't you love show business? So then, I started to do what are called trade shows. You know those shows they do down at the McCormick Center? Okay, so where they sing and dance about Frito-Lay's, Pepsi-Cola, American Motors Jeep. Those are shows I did, actually. And so I was here in Chicago at the McCormick Center, and I was dressed, ready to go on to sing and dance for American Motors. And I remember this very well because I was dressed in these really beautiful beige palazzo pants and this little pink mohair sweater that, no kidding, it had a bunny rabbit on the front of it. I love that sweater. So there I was, ready to go on stage, and I get this call from an agent back in New York City. And she says that I have been requested to audition for the revival of a Broadway show, and that the audition is for Hal Prince. Hal Prince. Hal Prince, yeah, he's yeah, we know who he is, right? Phantom of the Opera, la la la. So I get back to New York City, and the audition is the very next day. I show up at the Lunt-Fontanne Theater, and I sing my little belt Broadway audition song, and then I do the little dance numbers that Pat Birch, the choreographer, gives me to do. And then I look out into the auditorium, and it's this blackness out there. I mean, when you're on stage, the lights are in your eyes, you really can't see very much. But this silhouette comes floating down the aisle towards me, and it's Mr. Prince. And he comes to the lip of the stage, and he says, "You've got the job." Somewhere in my youth or childhood, I must have done something good. Oh, I love it. Okay. So, the job was to create the role of Paquette in Leonard Bernstein's Candide. Paquette, by the way, was the maid. I told you I'd tell you about this. So I was so naive. I didn't know at that point that there had been a production of Candide in the 50s with Barbara Cook as Cunegonde. I didn't know that then. And I also had never read Voltaire's Candide. And it wasn't until years later that I found out the reason that I got the role of Paquette was because Julie Newmar, the original Catwoman in Batman, she was contracted to do the role, and she dropped out at the last minute. Thank you, Julie. And I also didn't know that among the handful of lyricists that were compiled to contribute to this new version of Candide was the great Stephen Sondheim. And I remember the very first time I ever saw Sondheim, it was backstage while we were in rehearsal, and I saw this guy. He was really scruffy, he had this beard and this like shabby clothes. I thought he was the janitor. He wasn't the janitor. So, God, there's so many stories I could tell you about the doing of Candide. But to borrow from one of the characters in Candide, the old lady, "Someday, dear friends, I am going to regale you of the trials and tribulations of doing the production of Candide, but that time is not now." Oh, so... So we did Candide for 6 months out at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, and then we moved it to the Broadway Theater on Broadway. We did 8 shows a week for 2 years. And then the musicians' strike. The musicians' strike of the 1970s closed down all the musicals on Broadway, including Candide. So that's showbiz. So back to pounding the pavement. I'm just a Broadway baby, walking off my tired feet, my older and tireder feet. So in order to make ends meet, I got myself a job. I was running the salad bar at the U.S. Steakhouse. It was this restaurant was on 7th Avenue in the 50s. And I would carve hundreds of sandwiches a day and sometimes serve them to the director, the producers, the performers who I'd worked with just a few blocks away. Oh, my ego. But the favorite thing about that job for me was that I got to take home the scraps of food. And I could feed myself and my cat and the more than occasional man that I would have up. They were dark times. I was alone. I drank a lot. I got fat. The doctor I was seeing said that I had acute anxiety. I had acute little anxiety, all right. Where am I going? And what will I find? What's in this grab bag that I call my mind? What am I doing? Alone on the shelf. Ain't it a shame no one's to blame but myself? Which way is clear when you've lost your way year after year? When I keep falling in love for just the heck of it, staggering through the thin and thick of it, hating each old and tired trick of it. Know what I am, I'm good and sick of it. What am I doing? Where am I going? Why do I care? Run to the Bronx or Washington Square. No matter where I run, I meet myself there, looking inside me. What do I see? Anger and hope and doubt. What is it all about? And where am I going? Thank you. So, 6 years of this existential angst. And the phone rings. It's Hal Prince. He heard through the theatrical grapevine that I wasn't doing too terribly well. And he wanted to have me over to his office so that if I was doing okay, to tell me about this project that he was working on. So I go to his office, and I guess I must have been okay, because he tells me that they are doing another production of Candide, but this time for the New York City Opera stage. And that Leonard Bernstein had written a little small solo part for the role of Paquette for this operatic version, and that he wanted me to learn it for the audition. So the day of the audition comes. I show up to the State Theater at Lincoln Center, and I go up in the elevator door opens, and there's this huge hallway. And at the end of the hallway are these two great big double doors. And along the hall are all these people. I don't know why it didn't occur to me that there would be other people there. This is my audition. Anyways. So then I start to listen, and I hear these gorgeous operatic arias being sung by these beautiful, beautiful voices behind these double doors. Oh my God, I can't sing like that. I'm just a dancer who learned how to belt. I'm gonna make a total ass of myself if I go in there. What am I gonna do? So I ran and I went to the elevator door and I pushed the down button. And then I heard this voice in my head. You're going to run away from this? But I'm not good enough. Really? I am what I am. I am my own special creation. So come, take a look. Give me the hook or the ovation. It's my life that I need to take a little pride in. My life, and I don't feel that I need to hide in. My life is a sham till I can say, hey world, I am what I am.
Deborah Darr, you're next.
Oh my God. So I go through the double doors, and it's this huge room. It's as big as a basketball stadium. And there are all these people seated at this big table in the middle of the room, all staring at me. And in the middle of the table is this bright light, red hair, huge smile. She's unmistakable. Beverly Sills. One of the greatest opera singers ever. No wonder they call her Bubbles. So Bubbles smiles at me, and I smile back. And she says, well, I've been asked to have you sing It. So, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, I will now sing for you the special solo part written for the operatic version of Candide for New York City Opera, especially for Paquette, sung originally by yours truly, to the great Beverly Sills. Now, please, I really want to make this clear. We've been in a cabaret all night, right? This is opera, okay? So it's very, very serious. El Dorado was not an enlivening spot, but we left it with rubies and treasure, and it seemed guaranteed that I was going to lead a career of indulgence and pleasure. But what happens? I land on a square foot of sand with a couple of gullible boobies. I'm a young girl who still has her dreams to fulfill. Tell me, when do I get some more rubies? That's it. Woo! So, Bubbles looks at me and she says, welcome to New York City Opera. Opening night. Lincoln Center, State Theater. Leonard Bernstein and his entourage. 3,000 people coming to their feet in a standing ovation. There are no drugs, my dear friends. that make you higher than that. Life was good. I was able to do Candide for 2 more seasons, as well as a production of their South Pacific. And I did another Broadway show, Doonesbury. And I did a whole bunch of television commercials. And I was contracted to do Candide again in the spring of 1986. And I had just been cast as Desiree in a production of A Little Night Music. And I remember it was this absolutely gorgeous February sunny Sunday afternoon. And my fiance and I were riding home on his motorcycle from a shopping trip for bathing suits of all things when this car I went flying. Landed hard on my right side. Felt my legs snap off. Grabbing a stranger's lapels. Screaming, I need my leg. I need my leg. The ambulance. The gas mask as I went into surgery. The doctor standing over me. She may never bend her knee again. My fiancé, when the lawyer was telling us he had no insurance, well, she fell off the motorcycle the wrong way. How do you fall off a motorcycle the right way? Thought you had all the answers to rest your head upon. Well, something happens. Don't see it coming, and you can't help yourself. Now you're out there swimming in the deep, in the deep. Life keeps tumbling your heart in circles till you let go. Till you shed your pride and climb to heaven, and you throw yourself off. Now you're out there spinning in the deep, in the deep. In the silence, all your secrets raise their ugly heads. Well, you can pin yourself back together. You never thought you could. Now you're out there slipping. Now you're out there living in the deep, in the deep, in the So 3 years and 3 surgeries later, over that time I had hundreds of hours of physical therapy. So, at the age of 43, I went back to finish that unfinished college degree. But this time in physical therapy. So, about 6 years after the accident, I am studying for my neurology final exam in order to graduate from PT school. And the phone rings. It's Hal. He says, "How far out of the theater are you? We're doing Candide again, but this time with Chicago Lyric Opera. The role is yours if you want it." But I can't, I've had this accident and I can't, run up and down stairs and I can't fall to my knees like Paquette falls, and I haven't been on stage in so long and I haven't sung it. We still want you. So, Chicago was where I first heard of Candide. Chicago was where I did my final performance of it. I love this city. It's where I found my husband. It's where I found my new life, my new career. All of you. That's worth an applause. But most importantly, myself. What was the name of that town again? Providence. Yes, Providence. Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. Rivers running free, you know how I feel. Blossom in the tree, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean. Don't you know, little children having fun, you know how I feel. Sleep in peace when day is done, that's how I feel. And this old world is a new world and a bold world for me. Stars, when you shine, you know how I feel. Scent of the pine, you know how I feel. Free dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling good.
Ladies and gentlemen, Deborah Darr.
I have one more song if you want it.
Bravo, Deborah.
First, oh God, thank you. What a wonderful audience you've been. I'd like to thank, first of all, Davenport's. Isn't this just the most wonderful, it's such a beautiful venue, right here in Chicago. And all of the wait staff, please be very generous to them. They've worked very hard tonight. There's magnificently lots of you tonight, which is wonderful. And I'd like to thank Eric, our lighting director, who has just done magnificent work there. And Rob Gilletta, some I can't see you, but he's been filming all this, so that's nice. And there is Louise Cloutier, who is not here tonight, but she's responsible for helping birth this show. And Lena Koutrakis, the director back in New York. And Rick Jensen, who did a lot of the arrangements. But most importantly is this beautiful, beautiful man at the piano, Nick Sula. The secret of life is enjoying the passage of time. Any fool can do it. There ain't nothing to it. Nobody knows how we got to the top of the hill. But as long as we're on our way down, we might as well enjoy the ride. The secret of love is in opening up your heart. It's okay to be afraid. Just don't let it stand in your way, no. Everyone knows that love is the only road. And as long as we're here for a while, we might as well enjoy some style. Give us a smile, isn't it a lovely ride? We're sliding down and gliding down. Try not to try too hard, it's just a lovely ride. Now the secret of time is that time isn't really real. It's all in your point of view. How does it feel to you? Einstein said he could never understand it all. The planets spinning in space, a smile upon your face. Welcome to the human race. Isn't it a lovely ride? We're sliding down and gliding down. Try not to try too hard. It's just a lovely ride. Isn't it a lovely ride? We're sliding down and gliding down. Try not to try too hard. It's just a lovely ride. The secret of life is enjoying the passage of time.
Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Deborah Darr.